Hello viewers, Super Tea Guzzler here. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the current state of Assetto Corsa Competizione. What's good, what's bad, and will playing this game make you more attractive to the opposite sex? That is what we'll be finding out by the end of this video. So put your kettle on, make yourself a brew, and let's upset the fanboys. This video is sponsored by the Wearer Christmas calendar. Instead of chocolates behind every door, there's tools which you could eat, but they won't taste very nice. And I heard a rumour that they're pretty handy on your sim rig. Either way, if you're interested, check out the link in the video description. Now, ACC came out on the 12th of September 2018, which was 2 years, 2 months, 1 week and 4 days ago. For those of you that are anally retentive, which most sim racers are, that is approximately 69,379,000 seconds ago, which I feel is more than enough time for it to have matured like a mature cheese in a cheese closet, allowing me to not have to hold back whilst throwing punches at the Assetto Corsa Competizione Parmesan. I'm pretty sure that the Parmesan will be intact and able to be grated all over your dinner at the end of this video. So don't worry fanboys, it will all be fine. I know this kind of thing is stressful, but it will all be fine. Right, straight to the important question, and the question I get asked all the time. Those of you that don't have Assetto Corsa Competizione, should you get it? Yes, you should. It's absolutely fantastic, really good fun, and pretty amazing value for money. So definitely get it. But I would say, if you have a slower PC, i.e. something that's got a slower than a 1070 graphics card, NVIDIA 1070 graphics card, you will have to turn the graphics quite far down. You might find it looks absolutely nothing like what you see in a lot of videos. And I would also say that if you're on PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One, don't get it for those platforms, as they're very much like an off-brand teabag version of the game. I mean, arguably you're still drinking tea, but it's a watered down. It's not watered down, it's still got the same content in it, but it's watered down in terms of frame rate and just little issues that occur from trying to get a game that really shouldn't work on a PlayStation 4 working on a PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Having said that, I definitely think the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X version of this game will be really good and really worth getting for those of you on the console platforms. And, you know, those consoles just have enough grunt to run it, and it'll be a really good value for money entry into sim racing. So that'll be fantastic when that happens. Lastly, in terms of controls and equipment, you can play this game with a game controller, but with it being a realistic driving simulator, you really want to be using a steering wheel, as it just gives you much more precise control and it just makes sense. It's a simulator, the real car's driven with wheels. You know, it makes more sense and it'll be a lot more fun. So, that out the way, let's go straight to the handling. And prior to the last update, which was a few days ago, maybe even a week ago, I really don't know how time works in 2020, but prior to the latest version of the game, the cars were a bit plank-like. I would describe the driving experience in ACC like pushing a plank of wood around a racetrack, which just really didn't do it for me from an innate handling perspective, even if the cars had other components that were good. But now, since the recent update, I can report, as someone that has no idea about anything to do with car physics, mathematically or engineeringly, I don't even know the correct words, now the cars actually handle much more like other racing simulators and much closer to what you typically see when you watch onboard videos of these types of race cars on YouTube, which is a terrible way to compare and analyze car handling. But yeah, the cars now, they just seem way more nimble, far more responsive to driver input, and as a result, more satisfying to drive. You know, I always feel the more control you have of a vehicle, the more enjoyable it is. That's kind of the point of driving. Some specific examples. Now, when you turn the wheel, the rear of the car is much more sensitive to the amount of steering input that you're putting in. So you can accidentally lose the rear of the car easier, but you can also manipulate the rear of the car easier just from the steering wheel input. Also now, the lift-off oversteer seems more pronounced. So you can, again, control and modulate the rear of the car by lifting off the gas rather than having to apply more brake or more steering wheel, like you can choose. And in general, the cars just feel a lot more on edge. Previously, they were like grandma after Christmas dinner, slumped in her chair, half asleep. Maybe she's dead. You don't know. You just have to poke her and check. Now they are like a London city worker that's just snorted a line of some white powdery substance, and they're dancing the night away, acting inappropriately, sexually assaulting any woman that they come across. Whatever you like or dislike, the fact of the matter is one is certainly more active than the other. And I think when it comes to racing simulators, the more active, the better. In my opinion, that's my view anyway. Outside of just the overall handling, I feel like suspension has always been very good in ACC, even early on. But you know, you can really attack curbs in this game. You know, if you absolutely pummel a sausage and fully insert a sausage into your undercarriage, even if you enjoy that sort of thing, and even if the car can take it, you will lose lap time and you may damage the vehicle. But crucially, you can probably catch it if you're quick and you haven't absolutely smashed it. And you can keep driving. And ultimately, this type of vehicle is predominantly designed for just very wealthy people to do some race driving. You know, they're meant to be generally, on the grand scheme of race cars, pretty forgiving. And I think ACC really does capture that. These cars are actually quite forgiving. They're bloody hard to get the absolute most out of because of that. But at a fundamental drive level, a fundamental don't lose control of the car spin level, they are relatively easy to drive. Now, with that more seemingly nimble nature, or feel of nimble nature, the differences between the different individual vehicles are more apparent now. So there's more enjoyment from trying different cars and getting used to different cars and then getting the most out of different cars. Obviously, they're all GT3 cars, so then, you know, you're not talking like Formula 1 car versus go-kart, but there are reasonably sizable differences between the vehicles, such that when you're starting to race online and you're actually starting to get relatively competitive, let's say within a second and a half of the top lap times, or in public service at least, you know, you will then start to get to a point where you actually do have to dedicate quite a sizable amount of time to a specific vehicle to really get the most out of it. Now, I will say, when it comes to the physics of pretty much all the vehicles, when it comes to actually going fast in these cars, the general approach seems to be that you want to go into a corner almost pushing the car into understeer, or effectively driving into understeer much more aggressively than you would in most other simulators, and then transition from that understeer into a neutral situation. So you are counter steering to get it into that neutral situation, and it is almost like you are driving into oversteer, but you're trying not to oversteer as much as possible. Now, that might just sound like, oh well, that's just how you drive fast, but obviously I'm just talking in a relative sense compared to other simulators, and it will possibly throw you through a bit of a loop the extent to which you need to push into that understeer compared to other sims. I'm not making the claim that that's realistic or unrealistic. It's just a definable characteristic of the physics in this simulator, and as a result, I think people that predominantly prefer to drive with the car mostly in a state of oversteer, or at least like to have that really loose rear end on corner entry and oversteer at the beginning of the corner, I think they will find it a lot harder to adapt to this simulator. Now, again, because I know that sim racers are not pedantic whatsoever, you can very much oversteer in this simulator. You can very much absolutely wongle the rear of the car out all over the place, and you can catch it. And where this ACC really contrasts with something like iRacing, for example, is when you do a massive slide of the rear, which is not beneficial whatsoever to lap time, you still have the ability to bring it back almost all the time, even from absolutely bonkers slip angles, even with the traction control off or on or whatever. Now, in contrast, though, to something like the original Assetto Corsa, probably due to the more peaky and immediate fall off of how I believe the tyres operate in ACC, which may or may not be realistic. In contrast to the original Assetto Corsa, I don't feel in ACC that you can hold multiple specific small slip angles sustained through a corner in a way that's beneficial to lap time. And if you can, I mean, I don't think you can, but even if you can, it seems that that's pointless to do, because you're just much better off going into that understeer state and then powering out of that. The cars just really hook up when you do that. So, you know, personally, that aspect, that very specific aspect of the handling, I much more enjoy in the original Assetto Corsa. But when you look at everything in totality, just the general solidity of everything, the general believability of everything, it really is quite fantastic. Now, onto the controversial for me and no one else topic, the force feedback. So, Assetto Corsa Competizione has really nice force feedback for stuff like track texture, what seems like tyre flex, and the sort of on-off feel of the tyre giving out once you go over the limit. Also stuff like the ABS and what feels like tyre carcass vibrations and things like that. All those details are absolutely fantastic. Also the rear of the car pulling the steering back round, this sort of self-aligning torque. I think it's probably an oversimplification of that term, but the nature for when the back steps out for the force feedback to want to correct that, that's all really good, and that will really help new drivers, and it's a fundamental thing that makes it easier to not lose control of the car. So all that is fantastic. However, due to a fundamental design philosophy, ACC does not have any seat of the pants force feedback. So if you use that as a cue from IRFFB to play iRacing, or you enjoy the sheer range of feel that you get from the original Assetto Corsa, which may not have used a telemetry-driven seat of the pants thing, but that might have just been a result of its tyre model. Either way, if you really like to drive from that range of force feedback that gives you a sense of the G-loading on the car, that is really missing from this sim. I don't want this video to be a really in-depth deconstruction of force feedback, because it's quite complicated to talk through. So that's going to be in another video. Click that subscribe button and like, and then you'll be notified when that video goes live. But for this video, what I will say is most people with most equipment will probably enjoy the force feedback in this title, though if you're a fan of Assetto Corsa IRFFB and you really like, or some people need, that seat of the pants feel, then you might find the force feedback somewhat frustrating, and the driving as a result a lot less intuitive than what you would find with those other simulators. Now, you might have put a pencil through your ears, because listening to me witter on about force feedback would drive most people to the cliffs of Dover headfirst into the beach with the tide out. But if you haven't, the audio of this game is fantastic. Indisputably, ACC has the best car audio, environmental sound audio, not the guy talking on the radio. Please just shoot him. But the actual, you know, when rubber, marbles, dirt, or whatever hits the underside of the vehicle, the exhaust pops, you know, all that stuff, it's just really well captured. All the different vehicles sound phenomenal, bloody amazing, top notch. I mean, you just play the game and listen to it. Just watch a video without a British guy wittering on it. Audio, fantastic. So I don't need to say any more about that. Good job, audio. Graphics. I did say at the beginning, you need a decent graphics card to really get this to look nice. Since the last update, the performance has again improved. Kunos keep improving the performance of this and optimizing it more. Shadows especially seem to be drawing a lot nicer and less popping in. And the frame timing seems better. I've got a 2080 Ti, and even with that, I would hit like 90 FPS, but it wasn't obviously running at 90 FPS because the frame time would be weird and you'd notice stutter. Now it definitely seems that I can fairly consistently always hit 80 or so FPS. If you're using something like FreeSync or G-Sync, you probably won't have problems with this. But if you're on slower graphics cards, don't expect it to run necessarily as smoothly as just about any other simulator. yeah, it's just one of those things. And obviously in VR, it's complete shite. So don't don't expect to be able to play this in VR. You can technically play it in VR, but the VR support in this is very much like the PS4 support. Technically possible, really not ideal. It's like reusing a tea bag from a few days ago that's gone mouldy. I'd imagine in 2 years' time, we'll have graphics cards fast enough to make the VR performance of this acceptable. But until then, or bar a huge engine update, just really don't expect this to be great in VR or ideal. Possible, but not ideal. But hey, you know, the actual track models, the car models, the textures, the illumination, the day-night, the rain, everything, I mean, those are fantastic. I mean, the artistry in this game is superb. Especially when you consider that it's a normal retail price game. And just the quality of the tracks are a piss take in the sheer fidelity of them. Laser scan data, modelling over the top of that and everything. Absolutely fantastic. Artistically, but let down by the realities of the Unreal Engine, unfortunately. Now, I have to, as this is online multiplayer, you'll have noticed earlier on in the race, we were driving against some people with 200 plus pings, and yeah, their movement wasn't ideal, but their pings were stupidly high pings. And again, the netcode in this is really, really well done. The cars, assuming anyone's got a ping below 150, which is what you'd reasonably expect, the cars look really nicely positioned on the racetrack, really natural, no weird jittering, jumping, or you know, stuff like that. You can drive really close to vehicles, and you can even have a bit of contact without stupid things occurring for the most part. I mean, if a car's on the limit through a tight corner and you nudge the rear, sometimes they'll unrealistically spin around, but that's when a car's very sensitive to spinning around anyway. So in totality, compared to just about any other game in multiplayer, I would say visually, this probably has some of the best netcode. Maybe iRacing visually, apart from when the cars are jumping up and down and flashing on and off. iRacing maybe has the best visual netcode, but this is very close. In terms of car contacts and reactions, Race Room probably still has it, but you know, it's really well done in this. You're not... Very rarely am I playing this and cursing the netcode and multiplayer collisions. I'm cursing the driver that's careened out of control into me, but it's not as a result of a technical issue with the game. So the netcode is absolutely fantastic. You can't talk about the netcode though without talking about the server browser, which is absolutely absurdly awful. The search function, great, that works really good, really fast, and actually is the only thing that really works great with it. So that's good, that's nice, but there's no filters for just showing sessions in quali or just showing specific things that you want, that you'd likely want to join. They do have this weirdo weighted filter system for the quick join thing, but that doesn't seem to really work properly anyway. And when you click the quick join, a lot of the time it just puts you in a server that maybe has an hour-long practice and a 40-minute race and just stuff that you would never want to join as a quick join option, regardless of what you set anywhere else. The server browser is just a farce with this, and it's just embarrassing to be honest. It's embarrassing. It doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, the server browser is terrible. It's pure classic Kunos, you know. I mean, he's literally like a cat. Buy it like a really nice playhouse or really nice mat to sit on that's heated or something, and he goes and just sits next to it in the corner or gets in the box for it. You know, I don't know what is going on there. But yeah, the server browser, effing terrible. Now, lastly, with the multiplayer, there is this safety rating thing and some ranking stuff, but it just doesn't work. It's so easy to get your safety rating up. So you have servers, you can only join them if they've got if you've got a certain safety rating. I drive terribly. I bang into people all the time. I mean, I'm not the worst driver. I'm not a wrecker, but you know, my safety ratings are always like 90, 99 or whatever. And it's not the thing that's stopping people from crashing. There's probably a little bit of psychological stuff of don't bang into people, don't hit people because you'll lose safety rating. So that works. That'll have a positive effect. But they drastically need to change it so that maybe you can gain safety rating quickly in a sense initially, but if you are a wrecker or, you know, if you do contacts, you lose it faster. I don't know. it doesn't work at the moment. That's all that matters. So that said, though, the safety rating doesn't work to stop people crashing, I don't think. But because the GT3 cars and the GT4s, for the most part, are very easy to drive, and the handling in this is very approachable, you do, and ABS and everything, you do end up with relatively clean public server racing. You could argue, oh, that's because of the safety rating. I honestly don't think it is because of the safety rating. I think it's just the nature of the cars. So I find once you have to still approach this as a public server mentality when you go into online, but I actually find the online racing fairly reasonable. And even more so if you join specific servers like the Belgium servers and some other ones where they've got a community there that kind of moderates things. So you can get quite good online public server racing with this. Obviously, if you really want super clean racing, then you want to look at organised leagues and things, which is always an option with these. But yeah, safety rating doesn't work so well. The matchmaking races I don't ever bother doing, so I can't talk about them. But there's a thing where you can do sort of semi-endurance races through a matchmaking system, which is a nice feature, but I don't use it. And that's the multiplayer. I think it's pretty good. Single player, though, I'm going to do a separate video on that. They've just updated it, and I've not done it enough to talk about in this video. But from what I've seen, briefly, I think the AI and stuff looks like it actually might be quite good. But that's another reason to subscribe and like and watch our video where I talk more about the single player. In terms of actual single player to play through, like story and what have you, forget that. That's shit in this game. But in terms of doing an AI race, that actually might pan out to be quite good now. So watch out for that video. I don't want this video to be multiple races in the background. We're running out of time. So, the state of Assetto Corsa Competizione, absolutely fantastic. The crucial thing being, Kunos are polishing and keep working and do really good updates, and the DLC is always a reasonable price. Fantastic. It's just like Automobilista 2. Even if at points in time it's not very good, and you know, we'd all love a game to come out that's a fully fledged polished title at launch. That would be really nice, but it's just not what happens anymore, unfortunately. Despite that, if the developer keeps working on it, it just gets better, and that's just good value for the consumer. So yeah, if in my opinion, if ACC had slightly better seat of the pants force feedback feel, you know, I would. This is getting into 9 teabag territory, but I'm not giving it a teabag rating in this video because this is not a review. This was just meant to be a quick summary of the current state of the simulator. More specific videos are on the way. I will be live streaming this more. We did 10 hours of this sim yesterday, which is why my voice sounds totally knackered in this video. Oh well. Sorry about that. But there you go. Thank you for watching. Happy tea drinking. And goodbye, everybody. Bamboozle. I'm back. Subscribe. Other videos. What a YouTube channel. One of the best, if not the best, obviously.